In 1993, he was posted in London as counselor, Embassy of Japan, and while there he also held a position of research associate, International Institute for Strategic Studies. The following year, in 1994, he became the special advisor to Mrs. Sadako Ogata, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva, for 3 years. In April of 2000, he was appointed executive assistant to the Prime Minister of Japan. During his post in Tokyo, before the vice ministerialship, he served as the Director General of the Economic Affairs Bureau from 2002 to 2005, Director General of the Asian and Oceania Affairs Bureau 2005 to 2008, as well as a chief negotiator to the six-party talks. So please join me in welcoming Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to the United States, Kenichiro Sasae.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. Stick, for the kind introductions. And I'd like to especially thank you for arranging and organizing this luncheon. And Japan-America Society in here, Dallas, is giving a great contribution to the friendship between Japan and Texas. I do say everywhere I go, but today it is special. You know why? I think lunch was wonderful. I almost forgot to talk about the things. I fully enjoyed all this lunch. And also thank Dr. Jameson for offering this wonderful campus. I know that the Texas people love being big. And I confirmed that one coming to this University of Texas. Everything is big. And also you are big too. And also I recognize, I'm glad to see here again, the Admiral Walsh, former Pacific commander. It's once again great pleasure for me to see you. And also taking occasion, I want to thank Mr. Hamada and Nishitani, the representative of Japanese business community here, joining here today and to support all this luncheon occasion. I'm delighted indeed to be here in Dallas, Fort Worth. What they say about Texas is true. Everyone here is so friendly. There is a word of this Southern hospitality, but Texas is special. Until recently, I hadn't heard the term Texas friendly. But one Texas blogger I found out described this way: Texas friendly as when you signal to change lanes and the driver in the other lanes put on his brake to let you in. But I was also told, another friend, well, there is a California friendly. On the other hand, California friendly is when you try to change lanes and 10 cars speed up so you can't get in. I hope you don't tell these Californians. This is not what I'm saying. This is what my friend told me. But this might surprise you. A survey evaluated 40 tourist cities around the world in 10 categories that would include everything from cleanliness, transportation, and to friendliness. Tokyo received the highest overall rating. It ranked #1 for friendliest taxi drivers and #2 on the friendliness of locals. So like Texans, the Japanese people are friendly. Since I think you would feel at home and enjoy yourselves, I am inviting all of you, Americans especially, there is a Canadian too, and also Korean friend I found out. I know him, he was in Tokyo. He was working at the embassy. So I don't invite him, I don't have to. So I'm inviting all of you to come to Japan and come to and see for yourselves that we Japanese are Texans in our friendliness. Now today I'd like to give you an update on what's going on in Japan these days. You hear a lot about these days, Japanese politics, Japanese economy. I'm glad, actually, as ambassador to the United States. Last month, we had an upper house election of the Diet. The LDP, that is a Liberal Democratic Party, led by Prime Minister Abe, won in a landslide. The reason this is important and the reason it has encouraged many Japanese is that Japan has experienced a period of political and economic stagnation in recent years. We had what we called in politics the twist diet. A diet was twisting. Means that the diet where different parties control the upper and lower houses. And this was a huge obstacle to bring about the change and progress. Although you see a similar situation in the United States these days, and the upper house and lower house, they are bickering. There are lots of partisan politics these days. But we had that one too, many years in Japan. If there is a difference, the difference is that in Japan's parliamentary system, with a single party voice or very strong partisan binding on voting, things tend to be obstructed. If there isn't any prior sufficient compromise, and tried before there will be sufficient debate. So this political stagnation made rather difficult to address our economic stagnation, which we desperately needed to resolve. As you hear possibly, we had lost decade. Some people even say two lost decades. And the Wall Street Journal recently pointed out an entire generations of Japanese have graduated from college, gotten jobs, and now approaching middle age, known only deflation. It's kind of sad, When I was young and small children, Japanese economy was growing every year, very rapidly. It's a bit like Korea for the past 10 years, or even China today. But we went into plateau, and we are possibly a very advanced economy. But we are in the process of renewing a new stage of economic development. That's easy to say and difficult to do. And Japanese stagnant period, and this political stagnation especially, even carried over to foreign affairs too. The government had to reserve its political capital mainly for domestic issues, not necessarily for foreign affairs. While Japan remained where it was a decade ago, a number of emerging countries came up as major new players in this theater or global scene that was almost passing us by. But now, as I said it, LDP and its coalition partner have gained an absolute majority in both houses of the Diet. With two national level elections out of the way, Prime Minister Abe has both the time and the mandate to tackle major challenges, whether that is foreign or domestic. The Prime Minister's agenda focusing on, first and foremost, restoring, aiding Japanese economy, which would include growth strategy and reforming social welfare programs. On the foreign policy front, it aims at further strengthening the Japan-US alliance and seeking peace and development of Asia-Pacific region. This includes, obviously, not only our relationship with the United States, but also strengthening our relationship with our Asian friends, including Korea and China, and also ASEAN. And we are now embarking upon the new venture, that is the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement. So the Prime Minister has been concentrating on economic policy that is giving some result. He is determined to take the actions necessary to revitalize Japan's economy, and I also think Japan itself is more than ready to accept change. An article in the Washington Post recently quoted a Tokyo-based businessman. He's an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist. He said, "I think Japanese feel this is the last chance for change." I think most of the Japanese people feel that way because we have experienced too many years of stagnation. It's a time for us to come back and to change and move ahead. And possibly you know, in the Prime Minister Abe's economic policy, there are three arrows. That's been widely reported. So I don't have to really go into detail. It is known, consisting of three pillars: monetary policy, fiscal policy, and the growth strategy. What the Prime Minister Abe seeks to accomplish is a turnaround. I use the example of an elephant. An elephant requires a great deal of energy to turn around, but once it changes direction and starts moving forward again, well, its power to advance is formidable. As the third biggest economy in the world, Japan is like that elephant. The Japanese people are feeling that this dramatic change is now necessary and possible. Japan's participation in Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiation is an archetype of this change. In any country and in any time of trade history around the world, there are protectionists and special interests. All trade agreements are therefore difficult to get. But we also recognize that the TPP would provide us with a long-term stake, both in terms of economic and strategic implication to the future of the Asia-Pacific. Now, in April, Prime Minister Abe committed Japan to joining the United States and 10 other nations in these negotiations. And we formally joined the negotiations last month, following the country like Canada and Mexico. We are the last one to join before the conclusions of this negotiation. This agreement is important for a number of reasons. It reforms the foundations of trade rules that will govern the Pacific region in this new century. I would underline this new century. Well, we have been negotiating tariff and non-tariff barriers, and to make the movement of people and service and goods free. But now I think we have to do something different, new. That is a new rule making for the trade. whether it is intellectual property, whether it is government procurement, it is a cross-border technology, transfer, whatever the new types of trade, we have to address those. It is easy to say and difficult to do, but it is obvious unless this Asia-Pacific region, which is believed to be the engine and the future of world economic growth, then I think we have to do this. And I think in doing that, United States and Japan will be a good partner. And also Canada, I would say, Korea will be also good partner to do it. And, Japan's participation adds a great deal to TPP, since Japan's GDP is larger than all 10 non-US TPP members put together. If TPP would include Japan and deliver it, it would cover 40% of global GDP and third of global trade. So this will form a large marketplace with common trade and investment rules. The United States goal is to complete this negotiation before the end of the year. And actually, this is the consensus goal by all the participants. It is a very ambitious goal, but we are ready and we are prepared to make every possible effort to reach this goal. We are not really dragging the speed of the negotiation, although we are the one who came to the last moment. I just want to say it because there is some TV crew shooting this. All right. Now, I was the director in charge of Japan-US economic negotiation in the early 1980s. Those were some tough days. We are quarreling and fighting over the Pacific. But many believe that our economies were in a zero-sum situation. At least people took that way. At the time, I emphasized that the economic growth of each country would significantly benefit each other if that is supported by increase of trade and investment. So together with all this free trade, in combination with good economic policy management, would do the job. And if you look at the fact, it is obvious that things are different compared to, say, 20 years ago. For example, in 2011, Japanese auto companies directly employed nearly 400,000 people here in the United States. And because these are American workers, and because American-made parts are mainly used in the cars, it is not too much to say that these companies are now American companies. And it is no good to say simply by branding Japanese car or Korean cars or Canadian cars. We don't say that Canadian cars are American cars or Canadian cars. It doesn't matter because it is produced here and employing the people. So we do the same thing. So I think the times are changing now. I think we have to come to the adjustment of the new days. Now, something very important here in Texas is our cooperation in the field of energy. This June, the Department of Energy permitted the export of liquefied natural gas from Texas to Japan. We received this welcome news with a great sigh of relief because I have been working some time since I came to Washington to work over Energy Department and also Capitol Hill, so that this will be beneficial both to Japanese needs and American needs for the further economic growth. I think the decision was the right one. Now, since Admiral Welsh is here, I'd like to talk a bit about earthquake and tsunami. The great East Japan earthquake caused, as you know, tremendous damage to the Japanese people, both physically and psychologically. Before I get to the earthquake's connection to Texas and Japan's energy supply, I want to digress for one moment. Previous to that calamity in 2011, Japan had not been shaken as deeply as a nation since World War II. The Japan-America Society of Dallas-Fort Worth came to Japan's assistance with the donations of $186,000. On behalf of the Japanese government and Japanese people, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your generous support and contribution when we were in a very dark hour. It will not be forgotten, and I seldom go anywhere here in the United States. Wherever I go, I say how grateful Japan is for the friendship extended to us. Now, after the earthquake, Japan shut down all of its nuclear power reactors and began intensively diversifying our energy supply. We are in the process of reopening nuclear power plants approved to be safe. Given the Japanese people's vivid memory of the Fukushima power plant calamity, reopening the nuclear facilities require a careful process of having public support. So the import of natural gas from the United States not only will help stabilize Japan's energy supply, but it will also provide a stimulus to the U.S. economy. Finally, on the foreign policy front, I'd like to touch upon Japan's relations with its neighboring countries, especially China, because if you look at the current Asia-Pacific security environment, it is rather clear that how China would evolve in the future would continue to be our major interest and even concern sometimes. I don't talk much about Korea because we have some problem, but I'm really confident that we could overcome. We have history of the good friendship, and we could address properly. Now, about China, clearly, as you all know, China is becoming more assertive in China today, in Asia, and especially in the maritime domain. That would include the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea. Some Chinese people, surprisingly, have been studied to claim Okinawa as Chinese territory. I don't think the Chinese government is saying that, but the fact that some of the Chinese people are saying that would mean much in Chinese political context. We all know it. And twice in 1 month, a Chinese naval ship locked its weapon guiding radar on a Japanese naval ship and helicopter. This act often precedes actual filing. I think Admiral knows all that pretty well. And in the nearly 70 years since the end of World War II, the Japanese people have been a very peace-loving people. We have never taken any military or provocative action to stir confrontation or controversy. Yet we find ourselves faced with the fact that the Chinese vessels and aircraft are repeatedly taking provocative action in and around our water. So I can assure you that Japan will continue to remain calm and non-confrontational, but also resolute when it comes to our legitimate sovereign territory. Southeast Asian nations, which are also facing China's maritime expansion, share more or less the same concerns as we do. These tensions hopefully would disappear, and China's national interest would not be compromised if China would simply stop its provocative actions on the sea and on the air. Now, China is the world's second largest economic power. We all know it. The country of 1.3 billion people creates the economic equivalent of another Spain every year. So there is a tremendous economic opportunities. So there is nobody's interest to confront or bad relationship with China. And we need to have a solid, very sound relationship with China. And we all hope that China would fulfill the responsibilities that is befitting with its emerging presence and the power in the world. That, I hope, would include things like commitment to an open and transparent market economy, more burden sharing on climate change, and more open and rule-based foreign economic assistance program. And lastly, but not the least of all, security and stability in Asia need to be achieved, and not through massive military build-up, but through diplomatic and economic means. And Japan has been and will always open to dialogue with China. A sign of optimism, however, I would say, for Japan is that China has largest number of students studying Japanese. It's great. And the presence of Chinese public desire, especially among younger generation, to understand Japan will be a growing asset for the future of bilateral relations. And in spite of some of the limitations of freedom of expression and other fundamental political rights in China today. So let us hope that there will be a new, younger generation, getting together. Also here in Texas University, I was just told that there are different students coming from all over the world, including China. I hope that the younger generation would talk and exchange among themselves and start a new relationship looking at the future. Now, let me bring this to a close by saying that I believe Japan can once again become an engine of global prosperity. I will give you an anecdotal reason why I believe this. I was listening the other day, this national public radio in my car on the way to the embassy. The story was about the passengers and crew of a Japanese train who came together and tilted the train to its side far enough to rescue a woman. She fell in a gap between the train and the platform. The amazing thing was the train was again on its way, only 8 minutes later. The point is that when the Japanese people know ultimate goal and work together, we get a lot done. When Japan does again its economic dynamism, I want you to know that the United States will have an even more powerful friend and ally. By your every presence here, all of you have shown you have a strong interest in Japan and thereby are contributing to the strengthening of our relationship. As the Japanese ambassador to the United States, I would genuinely like to thank you for this. And let me also thank you for your warm and kind hospitality today. Thank you once again.
The ambassador has agreed to take a few questions, and if there are any, now's the time. Right over there, Annie.
Good afternoon, Ambassador. You yourself has spent time at an American institution as a student. How do you see Japan and the United States working to encourage more Japanese students at all levels to come here for short and long-term stays, and that acquiring an American education and experience here would actually add value to their careers in Japan? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for asking that question. That's one of the very important questions we ourselves are asking every day. You know, it is true that the absolute number of Japanese students coming out from Japan and study in the United States are declining. One time, you know, before I came to Washington, we were having some internal debates in the government why this is the way. And there are several reasons for that. One is that there is a decrease of absolute number of students. We are aging society among another. And if you look at the absolute number of the students graduating, it's half of the number we used to have several decades ago. So the number itself is possibly declining. And number two is that, you know, I might be a little bit, you know, having too much unilateral perception as an aging man. But the younger generations are quite happy to be in Japan, you know. They are not hungry, and they have a good life. They don't have to come over to the United States and study hard for the future work. And without studying and here, they could have access through internet, as you were talking about. And so I think there is a sense that, you don't have to really go out, you say. Possibly that is a result of the development of Japanese economy, one way or another. But another sign is that they are very much inward-looking, possibly, and staying longer, you know, and in the house, and you know, watching computer and using computer, not socializing much, and not going out. But I'm a little bit too much to say it, but I might be wrong. I also see a very ambitious young Japanese student. And whenever I go to the place in the United States, I see a younger student who are very active and ambitious. And so I shouldn't really, you know, unilaterally label the younger generation. And that's older man's, you know, habit to say it. But I think there is that sense. And then some part relate to the sense that if you go out of the country, you might risk the possibility of getting good job. So in a sense, learning abroad is not totally accepted as a positive value still in Japan. And I think because it depends on the company. I mean, some of the company here operating might be different. But if you say that you studied abroad and you graduated, and then if you try to have a civil service exam, that gives you an enormous problem because you have to study Japanese civil law, constitutional law, and all this stuff. You don't study, right, in the United States usually. So, and even Japanese company, you might think that if you go to abroad and try to come back, are they really given some preference and priority. So it's also the culture and attitude, I would say, of the company. The other day, while I was vice foreign minister, I asked our personnel office, how many applicants we have studying and graduating in a foreign country, especially the United States. And I asked our people to employ more of the students studying abroad, so that would give the incentive for the others to follow. But it turned out that out of 20 people we recruited, there are only two students who could come. One reason was many people don't pass the civil service exam. So there'll be a bit of burden like this. So there are several reasons. I don't get into all the detail. My wife is an expert on this issue, and she could address this question possibly later on. But so the question, what do we do, right? And I think one thing we could do is continue to encourage Japanese students to come over. A very important means is for the government to spend more money to support the program. Since our government is running quite a deficit, as you know, we are asked to reduce the budget deficit like the American government is now trying to do. But that doesn't mean that we have to reduce all this support program. So as ambassador, what I'm trying to do, and also I think Prime Minister Abe is very much understanding about the importance of the exchanges of a younger generation. I think he has made a good decision to increase the budget for the youth exchanges. That is called now Kakehashi Project. We used to call it Kizuna Project. Now we call that Kakehashi Project because there is a new prime minister now. Now, but what I'm saying is that the government is now expanding the program. But at the same time, I think there is more public campaign necessary so that the younger generation could feel more comfortable even if they go abroad and study and come back. Or they don't have to come back if they... I hear that the Korean students, there are lots of Korean students these days coming to American universities, and many of them would like to stay here after the school. And the new Korean ambassador to Washington, he's very new. He's a good friend of mine. The other day we were having a lunch, and I asked him, what is your most difficult challenge? He said that he's asking for special working visa for Korean students graduating American universities to stay here, continue to work here. Then there is a limit of working visa and so forth. And I envied him a little bit, because we don't hear that and from Japanese students asking for it. Perhaps there are some. So I think there are some efforts necessary on our part to get attention, not only from the students, but also the parents, and also the community, and even the companies who are trying to employ the young and talented students studying abroad. Sorry, I spoke too much.
I think we've approached about 2 o'clock, so I think we're going to have to call the discussion to an end at this point. But thank you very much for your insightful comments, and we really appreciate your coming here.
Yeah,
we have, oh, there we go. We have
What
a
is this?
little gift of thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Welcome to both Ambassador Sasae and
Calvin, do you have? Ambassador?
Ambassador, if you could come back. This is Christmas in Texas. Oh, if you would. And what I'd like to do is present this nice gift to you, because we want to make sure that when you leave, you don't forget UT Dallas. Okay. So we brought with you. Now, I'm a former athlete who play sports where they ran around the place, but we feel like we need to get you a golf shirt.
Oh, that's
So you would have a UT Dallas.
Thank you.
And one last
Oh,
thing,
there you
that, actually, Ambassador, you talked about how friendly we are. Our friendship extends not only to the people we bring to visit UT Dallas, but to the people who make it possible. So, John, Merry Christmas to you, too. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.